Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I've missed you guys. Now, there's a noticeable shift in how people relate to each other today. Disagreement feels sharper, conversations feel shorter, and perspective often feel fixed. But underneath that, there's something more subtle happening. Because most people don't just hold opinions, they build identities around them. And once an identity becomes attached to belief, changing your mind doesn't feel like learning. It feels like losing something. So the question becomes, why has disagreement become so difficult? And what does it reveal about how we think? Today's conversation explores that idea, politics, identity, and the growing divide in how people see the world. Today I'm joined by Elias Martin. Elias, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. You're welcome.
Thank you, Blesser, for the invite. Yeah, I love the way you framed it. I think you framed it the best out of the entire. I've been doing this little podcast tour, and that's a very great framing. And even if I want to argue with you, I will be foolish to do so because that's you framed it so well. Because when they attach it to the identity, learning or even listening or changing your mind feels like an attack. It feels like an assault.
Yes.
It feels like you're
Oh, wow.
losing something. So I actually love that framing because that's exactly what it is. You get straight to it. I just want to give you a great credit for that framing because that's a one big issue with especially with American politics. Rather you live
Yes.
in the left and the right, yeah, you feel attacked because this is what I believe. Oh no, I can't be stupid. I can't be wrong. No, no,
Yes.
no, no. Yeah, and it's very true. Once that opinion becomes your identity, instead of just treating it like a learning experience, you treat it as if yeah, you're losing something or as an attack, as a threat
Yes.
to your identity. So yeah, no, I love that framing. Let
So,
me just
Elias,
yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
Before I wanted to ask you, to kind of like introduce yourself to my audience so we can know who you are. But before I continue, and the reason why it seems like, I framed it so well is because of the fact that there was a time I read an article on X, and the article was basically talking about how you should treat your beliefs as tools and not identities. Take, for example, let's say your belief is like a hammer or a screwdriver. When it gets obsolete, what do? You throw it away and you get a new one. So when you treat your belief as a tool, when your belief gets challenged, whether maybe intellectually or psychologically or otherwise, you begin to understand that maybe this belief I have, maybe it's not realistic, maybe it's not proper, maybe it's even, absolute garbage. Maybe I need to just, I need to be open-minded and adopt a new way of believing or living. So that article maybe just gave me some perspective on how beliefs can either be tools that you can use to make your life better or something you can use to force an identity onto yourself and unintentionally, inadvertently destroy your life, if you know what I mean. So, Elias, thank you so much for, your wonderful words. I really appreciate that. And then please, can you tell us about yourself? Let's get to know you.
Oh, sure. I am so sorry. I as a experienced person, I should know better than just introduce myself first. A little shame on me there, but no,
No, no, no,
I am
not at all,
Elias
not at all,
Martin.
Elias.
Because I love to get straight to conversations. So I am a podcast host of Politically High Tech, and what I do is dive into erase a division of politics and why our thinking becoming more tribalistic instead of having a good debate. And my goal is not to change people's minds, but it's how to communicate different opposing ideas. Instead of just thinking one, it's evil. You could say the idea is flawed. That's fine. And I love how you framed it again. Treat a belief like a tool. A tool needs to be upgraded, take care of the job instead of your belief or your heart or something. Yeah, I
Yes,
mean, even though hearts could be replaced, but the things you if you treat it like it's your soul something, yeah, it's a big problem. So I've been dealing with that. I've been dealing with those conversations. I bring different guests on. Does I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever you are. You're welcome to my show as long as you have something that brings something interesting or enlightening to the audience. I have been getting stricter on that. I'm not gonna just end. I no longer bring some fancy consultant who gives me a whole lot of nothing. I'll call that fancy language or that's garbage. So I
Yes, yes.
raise my standards when it comes to bringing guests, and I also take care, just very briefly, on technological issues and spirituality. Or yeah, I'm going to focus more on spirituality. I think that's more important than even the finance and all that. I already took care of that stuff before you go to my old seasons for that. So that's why I do. In short, I try to get to the nuance and what value these people bring to the conversation. So they're just saying, "Oh, Republicans are evil," or "Democrats or dumb." No, not good enough. You could say that, but at least back it up with 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 insightful commentary. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the trash talk. Sometimes I'm no better than that. I'm gonna be honest. I'm from New York. Being a New Yorker, you have to deal with that. So so that's what I do. And when I do my show. Sometimes I do solo episodes to bring the articles I think are interesting that needs to be brought to the light. Especially like police dogs. It's all this is better for policing, or this is just extra surveillance, and and we are just continue to lose whatever little privacy we got left. So, and that's why I like to do these, because sometimes talking to politics all the time, I'm gonna be honest, I got tired. I mean, recently 2 weeks ago, I had to take a break because it got too overwhelming. I said, okay, I gotta take a break. Yep, gotta look out for my mental health. And I encourage people to do the same. Limit news consumption. So, but I think I was a little long-winded. I'm willing to go with the flow, bring value to the audience, and whatever questions you got for me, I'm ready.
Absolutely wonderful. Once again, Elias, thank you so much for coming on Thought Atlas, and thank you for letting us get to know you. And of course, you're welcome. Now, Elias, you've spent time trying to understand the roots of division. Now, where do you think modern tribalism actually began?
And oof, this is the same thing I'm going to be kind of repeating in the podcast. I mean, division in America, in particular, even started before the founding of the country.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, because there was those that wanted to be free from the British colony, and there were those who supported the British crown, and that's what led to the Revolutionary War. That belief. So, I think it comes and goes. It's just now we hitting I believe the hot point, the peak point of it, and of course, the current president is not making that any better.
Yeah,
He demonizes his opponents and only praise those who bow down and all that. Look, rather you like Trump or
yeah.
not, and that
He's not a good sportsman.
oh, absolutely. I mean, if anyone says he is, they're on some good stuff. They're on drugs. Yeah, he's not a spokesperson. Him and just to be fair, even the previous president, Joe Biden, was not a great speaker either. No, he had issues up with his brain. Even when he was well mentally, he was not that great yet. Obama was the last president who had great speaking skills and charisma and all that.
Yes.
I don't agree with Obama on everything, but I always give him that credit. He was a great orator. He was a great spokesman, the last great spokesman in America as a
Yeah.
president.
So,
So yeah, go ahead.
okay. Now, do you think, most people would argue that compared to before, that people are actually quite, there's a lot of cohesion today. But do you think people are becoming more divided, or it's just, maybe social media spreading rumors and whatnot?
It's a bit mixed because there is some division, but now I am hopeful. I've been hopeful since last year because I'm seeing even mainstream media with their flawed effort, they're bringing different voices together. Even though it causes arguments, and clashes, that's fine. I prefer that than having, all the Democrats have their own show and all the Republicans got their own show and only bring their buddies that support their narrative. No, I am not for that. I'm an independent thinker. No, have them debate each other. Have them even argue and shout. It's flawed. It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. So I think we are getting better at resolving division. Again, it's flawed, but at least people are challenging each other. Sometimes it goes with personal attacks and all that, but I think it's a learning experience for the society, and learning process is never perfect. So, and
Wow. Thanks so much.
there's a lot of examples I could go deeper into, but I think that's what's going on. And just to answer the social media part real quick, social
Yes.
media loves to spread anything that gets attention. Social media is not a good source for truth. If you want a narrative, if you're a liberal, you listen to liberal commentators. If you're conservative or right wing, you listen to right wing commentators. So that social media has made that worse. But I think some people are waking up and realizing, wow, I can't be just losing friends over different political belief. He was there for me when times were tough. And some people are
Yeah.
realizing that, which is good because we are way more than our political beliefs. Okay, that's just one part of us. It's not the whole thing. So that's all I'm gonna say, just to answer your question as completely as possible.
Wow, thank you so much for that wonderful response, Elias. Now, Elias, you mentioned people often, build identity around their views, which I find absolutely crazy. So, how does that shape the way, people engage in conversations?
Well, sadly, I mean, you was kind of scratching the surface there. When people, if you feel like your personal beliefs are attacked, you're not going to treat it like a learning experience, and
Yes.
especially religion, that's even I would say a little worse than politics. If you attack someone's belief system, they're not gonna say, "What do you mean by that?" They say, "No, no, no. How dare you attack my God or gods, whatever you believe in? How
Yeah,
dare
some people
you,
even go
you
as far
heathen?"
as, actually killing the other person for even challenging their religious beliefs, which is just crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It is crazy, but sadly, it's the times that we're in. But I think some people are getting better at it. Sadly, like I said, social media fuels that even worse, and even TV media. I'm not gonna just put everything on social media. TV media for the older folks, they shape their
Yeah.
own views and beliefs, and then for social media, got the younger folks. That's the only difference. These different mediums of entertainment got different demographics. That's the only difference, but they're doing the same thing. And social media just the reason why social media is more effective in some ways because it's quick and short form content does not help at all. Short form content, the brain. I'm gonna be attacking the brain here, even though I love the brain, but the brain is a lazy organ. It likes to consume
Yes,
whatever it's
very lazy.
easy. If it finds the easiest way to solve problems, that's where the brain's going to head towards. I mean, without any control or discipline, that's what the brain's going to naturally do. So, since social media creators and managers know that these are the ones that spread because they just care about attention and money more than the truth. And sadly that sadly builds the identity or even enforces the identity even more because that's all they watch. Algorithm just feeds what you watch. So if you watch left wing content, you're gonna get more left wing content. Every once in a while, they sprinkle a little right wing. They're gonna skip to that. Oh, disgusting, and vice versa. Right? If you're a right winger, you consume right wing content in social media. It's gonna get more right wing content. Why we sprinkle a little bit of left? It's I don't want to listen to that. Yeah, so
Yes.
that fuels echo chambers, that increases tribalism, and that even puts confirmation bias on stereo. Say, I knew it. You see what Donald Trump says? See, he did attack Iranians and we win it. I knew it. And then while for the left, it's like, oh, I knew it that Trump was wrong. Look at that gas prices, all that is up. The truth is normally in the mix of the two.
Yes.
So that's what we're having. I mean, the big source of division right now, unfortunately, is the president, and I would even say the Republican Party. Not to say the Democrats have not are not guilty. They are guilty in their own way too, especially the 2024 campaign. How they just attacked Trump without giving much alternatives. Some did, but that got drowned out by the media. That's more of a media. That's more the media's fault right there. And that's sadly, this is why people just feel attacked at me. I don't treat it like my identity. I just treat it as something that well, I love your analogy of the tool. I treat it like a set of clothes. Okay. If I gotta wear different clothes, just let the person know I'm not an enemy, present myself, and have an opening listening ear. That's way of reducing that. It's okay. Why do you believe that? Why do you believe Trump is fascist? I mean, what led you to that belief? Be curious, be open, and then they'll give you a bunch of answers without judgment. Because to be honest, both political views are flawed, and they both got their good points. They both got their stupid points. So
Yes.
That's how I treat. I'm an independent. Some issues I agree with the right, and some issues I agree with the left. I do things issue by issue. That's how I became an independent. So I realized
And
as a
you know,
kid,
okay,
I'm not as left wing as I thought, and then to the right, and then once I got older, I leaned to the right. I'm not as right wing as I thought. So I'm sorry, I think I cut you off, but that's all I wanted
okay,
to
no,
say.
it's totally fine, Elias. Another thing I wanted to add, I think another thing I wanted to add, sorry, I think it's a major contribution to this is because of the fact that people treat the world like it's like how do I put it? Like it's just black and white. People forget that there are gray areas to everything. I mean, it's not just left or right, black and white. There are lots of things involved. There are lots of gray areas. It's not just Republican and Democrats. I mean, are you serious? There are lots of. In fact, there is no Republican or Democrats. There are just people that want to win, and people that want to win by any means necessary. There are people that want to survive and people that are just there for the plot. It's just how it is. Even then, on top of that, there are still many other factors and many other gray areas that we can look at. So if you notice, right, there are people that cannot even deal with the idea that two truths can coexist. To them, it's impossible. It's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be feasible. It's not even real. But that's just the kind of reality we live in. In fact, to bust your bubble some more, 10 truths can coexist at the same time. Yes, the take for example, and please, if at some point I'm saying something wrong, I stand to be corrected. Take for example the Iranian government. Now, it's fair to say that the Iranian government is fighting against the US government because the US government is interfering in its nation's politics. It's also correct, I believe, to the best of my knowledge. Like I said before, I stand to be corrected. It's also correct to say that the Iranian government might just be oppressing its citizens. So you can imagine. So those are two truths, and they coexist together. I could give multiple examples. Which other example can I give again? Okay, the fight that is going on in Ukraine. One could say that Russia may in fact be invading Ukraine. But one could also argue that Ukraine definitely did something to make Russia want to invade their country. That in of itself is true. So instead of acting as if one side is absolutely wrong and the other side is absolutely right, why don't we find a common ground? That's the reason why we have gray areas. So that we can find, it actually helps with cohesion because there is no way that two people will not have different views about certain things in life, whether it's two people, two nations, or two parts of the world, the global north and the global south. But the idea is we can always find a common ground in which both sides, win in the end. And that's the importance of gray areas. But most people don't want that. They just want left or right, Democrat or Republican, terrorist or not terrorist. So with this, let me move on to the next question. Now, do you think people tend to seek truth or reinforcement of these beliefs that they have?
I mean, I love that commentary because that's what I try to do. And so, look, listen, and you're absolutely right. There could be multiple truths that could coexist, and those examples you give, I'm not going to argue because it's actually true. But to answer your question, some people just want to fuel their own beliefs. Some people don't care about truth, and so does social media and traditional media. They don't care about truth. They just care about attention, ratings, and money. That's why we got the problem that we have. But for me, I provide sources that brings more truth or at least nuance to the conversation. I always spread, like ground news. Ground news is very good. The new paper, because they give you facts and truth without spinning left and right. Because at the end of the day, once you get rid of these labels, they're non-existent. They're just labels to create division at the end of the day. So you're right about that. That's why I
Yes.
don't believe in being a Democrat or Republican. I just think to me, those are outdated beliefs that are struggling to exist right now in my crazy opinion. So people say it's crazy, but so no. At the end of the day, we are this and that. Once you get rid of that stuff, they don't really exist. It's more of a political social construct. So I agree with that. That's why I don't identify with either party, and I
Yes.
agree with that. But some people are trying to find truth, like me. I'm trying to find the truth, and easier said than done,
Exactly.
and maintaining a nuanced opinion. The reason why a lot of people don't want to find it because it's easy. It's easy. Some people just want a hero
Yeah.
and the villain, depending what political
Yeah.
belief you're in. So So what you're saying is very profound and smart. And people, if you want to debate with this, go ahead, but you're just going to expose your own foolishness. That's all I'm going to say.
Exactly.
So that's all I'm going to say about that. And no, I absolutely, that's a wonderful statement. So you're not really bursting my bubble, but you're bursting definitely the tribal people's bubble. I said, yeah, because
Oh yeah,
at
yeah,
the end of the
definitely.
day, I try to, because I try to expose. Look, listen, they are, Ukraine is not innocent either. I'm not. It's sad what happened to them, but
Yes,
they're not completely innocent either. They did things to instigate Russia invasion, and not to say Russia should never invaded. They shouldn't. But at the end of the day, that's what caused the war. It takes at least two nations to battle it out, and one will start striking first, and that's it for that. So some people trying to
yes,
find truth, a lot of people trying to find truth, but there's just those, I'm going to be honest, that loves power empowering those narratives. Oh
yes.
no, the Democrats always right, or the Republicans always right. There, those are gonna. I'm going to be honest. Not everyone wants to find the truth, and that's just reality.
Yes. Some people are just
Um,
looking for, reinforcements on the opinions that they have. And also, I
exactly.
was saying, I use the word gray area, but I think what you said is actually much more better. Nuance. Some people can just accept the existence of nuance. It's so difficult for them to. They don't understand that no matter how your opinion sounds, right, or the idea of something that you have, there is every possibility that it could be entirely wrong. And that is just so difficult to accept for most people. And I think it has to do with the fact that, I don't know, probably upbringing, wherever they're coming from, even, their religious, beliefs and whatnot. All these things tend to contribute to that hardened mind and heart to not even accept, not to talk of listening or dissecting or trying to understand new information. Now, you've emphasized the importance of, difficult conversations, which most people, or the vast majority of people, are not even ready for. What makes those conversations so challenging? What do you think it makes, besides what we discussed, right? What other things do you think makes having difficult conversations so challenging today?
Wow, I'm not sure I can add more to it because I already mentioned the media. The media makes it worse. Except for probably News Nation, but even I'm starting to question that, if I'm going to be honest, because sometimes they seem to favor the right wing a little bit. I was like, maybe because Trump is president, but it's yeah, the reason why it's just so difficult, and I'm gonna probably sound a little repetitive because race is identity, and that's another thing. It's identity, upbringing, all that. There's nothing we could do about that, and
Yes,
but what we could do is just try to have a conversation. All we could do is just try to have a conversation, and it's gonna take time. There's no magic bullet for it. If someone
oh,
offers a magic
definitely.
bullet, they are lying. They're just liars. As simple as that. And I'm not gonna use a
Yes,
nuanced word for them. I can say, oh, maybe they misguided. No, 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 no. Those people are lying. They just want to make money, and change in general. This angle, change is uncomfortable, even if you know it's good for you, it's uncomfortable. Just to hear different point of view, because people haven't been exposed to different points of view. There's a lot of young people
yes,
that hasn't been exposed to the center or the right wing point of view, and of course there's some young that haven't dealt with the left wing point of view. It's a matter of exposure. I'm blessed enough to have friends on the left and the right, but that's not normal. I say I don't care about your political beliefs, because at the end of the day, we're gonna drop that once I try not to curse it. Once things get really drastic when it comes to life and death situation, we are not Democrats and Republicans. Okay, and if you still cling to that with life and death situation, then one would need psychological help from there. A bullet is
yes.
going to kill you, no matter if you're left wing, right wing, center, whatever, because you're a human being. You bleed red. So,
Honestly, honestly. Well,
so
thank you
it's
so
not
much for
there's
a wonderful
no.
response.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just gonna finish this point real
No,
quick.
please
So yeah,
continue.
the Democrat, yeah, so the bullet doesn't have a political bias. It's just gonna go by where you aim it, where you aim the gun.
Yeah,
Okay, it depends on your skill from there. It depends on skill, your accuracy, and who you want to kill. And that's what's gonna do. I mean, can political beliefs motivate that? Of course. Oh yeah, I'm gonna kill this person because he supports a fascist, or I'm gonna kill this Democrat because he's actually a communist. Can it fuel it? Of course. And that's what I'm trying to prevent. I'm trying to prevent another second civil war. I'm sorry, I know I went a little over, but that's what I wanted to
Yes.
say.
Yes. Now, Elias, I totally agree with everything you've said. And what most people don't understand is the fact that, I've even experienced a situation where I had someone, using all these words, fascism, communism, democracy. I asked him a question, okay, what is fascism? And bro said, you don't even know what fascism is. And you, the fascist, this guy is a you can't even define it. And you can imagine that's what most people, they just have this head mentality to just follow the crowd. And they don't even know what they are supporting. And well, my friend said it's cool to support these people, so I guess I'm going to support them too. And you can imagine what that's like for most people. And that's how some people just are. They just support any kind of movement they see. It's something we say in my country, life isn't necessarily difficult. It's human beings that are difficult. And human beings taken together sometimes tend to be dumb because it's very easy to deceive. If you have a group of people and about half of them, or let's say 20% of them are idiots, and let's say those idiots have a certain level of influence in the group, because when it comes to the group dynamic, it's expected that when you are trying to push a narrative, you would of course try to employ those idiots into your cohorts and have them extend that narrative or belief with using their influence on the group that they are in. And you can imagine how sometimes something that I don't want to mention anything. Of course, I know that you can definitely, I'm trying to get to something so incredibly stupid will now become so mainstream to the point where the news carries it. It's worldwide. It's something that people are actually actively spending money to study and understand, and they're trying to make it into a norm. Like, are you serious right now? This is what you get when you have, idiots running around about. I'm not saying I'm the smartest person around in the room or anything of the sort. Like I said, I stand to be very much corrected if I've made any mistake about anything and everything I've said so far. What I'm just trying to say is, you would agree with me for a fact that there are lots of idiots around today, and they are one of our major issues. I mean, there was a Greek philosopher, I cannot remember his name. I don't know if he's Socrates or Plato. He said he actually prefers wickedness to stupidity or idiocy. And why? He said wickedness takes a break. Wickedness know it's wicked. You can decide to take a break, or maybe, okay, no, I've been wicked for the past 6 months. I'm taking this month off being wicked. You know what? Free pizza for everyone. But stupidity doesn't know that it's stupid. It doesn't. It's not aware that it's stupid. In fact, it would even argue that it's wiser than everyone else. So stupidity is constant, and at the end of the day, it destroys us all. So hence why we need to be careful of stupid people or idiots. Like I said, I'm not trying to insult anyone. I'm just trying to make a statement and whatnot. Anyways, let me move on to the next question. Now, do you think people generally avoid conversations or approach them with the wrong intent?
The easiest way to answer that, and it's a bit of a nuanced answer, it's case by case. We gotta know what a person's
Yes.
intent is. And sometimes having a conversation with a person, you'll know what their intent is. And me, since I'm in the Braver Angels organization, that's a group that's trying to bring different political people with different political beliefs together. Because at the end, and I'm just going to speak strictly for America because this is only in America. This is we are
Yes.
all Americans. That I'm just going to say we are all Americans. I know it's a global podcast, but this is only this one. I'm gonna say this is very American because Brave Rangers only in America unless it becomes a global organization. I don't know when that's going to happen, and I'm not going to pretend I have a crystal ball on that. But they're trying
Yeah.
to do that work, try to bridge that divide between those who are the left, the right, the center, the independents. We gotta conversate with that on personal or let the other person have a conversation with us or whoever because we gotta conversate or we gotta analyze the person because some people want to find truth, some people have good intentions, and some people, and I'm gonna just quote you, and you said it so well. The idiotic influencer. I'm just gonna label it like that. The idiotic influencer, an idiot with
Yeah.
huge influential power. That's you know what? If you inject and you know who this come from. If you inject yourself with hydrochloroquine, you're gonna be cured of all disease. I changed a little bit, but there's those who believe that and they're gonna just not question it. And then of course those who got
Yeah.
some brain power, they don't have to be a genius. Like, wait a minute. It's not bleach you're injecting? No, I'm not doing that. That's gonna cause damage. You crazy? So unfortunately, that's a problem. And Trump's not a great spokesperson, so that was bound to happen with so much
Yeah,
conferences that he was doing. It was inevitable, unfortunately. And there's a lot of criticize of Donald Trump and even Dr. Fauci, who I never really trusted him because he failed the AIDS epidemic, in my opinion, and I doubt he was going to do
yeah,
such a great job with this one. But I don't want to get too deep into that rabbit hole, because
yeah,
we
yeah,
gotta
yeah.
talk about that.
Uh,
That's just
yeah,
this is not for me to this is not my bashing time, and I've done that in my
yeah.
own podcast already, so I don't want to
I,
rehash that here.
yeah, I
So
remember speaking. Okay, sorry, continue,
no, go
please.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay, I remember speaking to a guest one time, and he was like, there was a time he said something, and the CIA came to pick him up, and he's just trying to avoid that. So you can imagine. Imagine now, like, okay, people do listen to my podcast, but I'm not like, mega superstar level kind of stuff. But I don't want to say something where I'll blow up and all of a sudden find myself in four walls and, I have to take a shit in an aluminium toilet or something of the sort. But anyways, let's let's continue. With regards to Trump, there was one time I saw on the news, I think it was CNN at the time, where some African delegates came to see him and he was speaking with their spokesperson. And the guy spoke fluent English. And Trump was like, wow, your English is so good. Where did you learn to speak English? And I was like, is this dude serious right now? English is like, first off, one of the easiest language to learn in the world. Secondly, it's like the world's lingua franca. Literally everyone and anyone can speak. Literally everyone on this planet knows the word of English. So why is it so surprising that someone can speak? Like, okay, take for example, can you tell where I'm from how I speak? Can you take a guess?
And if I'm gonna take an honest guess, I will say you're in the African continent, but what particular
Okay,
country? Uh, hmm. Let me see. I know which one. Let me go. Let me take a wild guess. And of course, you're gonna have to correct me if I get it wrong.
yeah,
Are you Nigerian?
yeah,
Nigerian.
yes, yes, absolutely correct. Yes, and you can you can imagine that English is something that most African, in fact, most Africans can speak English so fluently, you would actually be surprised. It's one of the first languages they learn in their life, so you can imagine. So I was actually quite surprised that he's not. I mean, this is a man that's supposed to be, well exposed, wealthy, well cultured, and you cannot even. You are surprised that someone can speak English. I was unimpressed for real. I was like, is he just trying to be sarcastic or trying to make a joke, or is he actually insulting? This is literally a delegate, a spokesperson for a country. Why do you think he wouldn't be able to speak English or his English should not be good? If anything, his English should even be better than yours because he's supposed to communicate with you effectively. And just among other things, that's just one of the few things I noticed. I was like, okay, this guy is just out of this world. But anyways, you know, we have to continue. Let's say people are listening and they actually have a slither of hope or sorry, a slither of the ability to be able to listen to um an opinion that does not align with their own and would want to maybe adopt a new belief system. How can someone navigate information without being overwhelmed or biased? How can those people navigate information without being overwhelmed or biased?
Well, oh, that's such a great question, and this one definitely requires nuance. Well, one way is be intentional what you consume, either through social media or TV media, or legacy media they call it.
Mm,
Because if you don't limit time, you will get easily overwhelmed. Be intentional what you want to pay attention to. Some people don't want attention. The girl with the biggest behind, or the man with the best abs,
yeah,
whatever. You will filter that out. Unless you want to pay attention to that. That's your choice. I'm not going to judge you. People have different
yeah,
interests. Be intentional what you want to pay attention to. And this is why personally I share these sources, because these sources will help out with this issue. You want just facts, you get facts, quick read, kind of everybody's busy. The new paper is one of them, and that's absolutely free. It gives you stock market information, what's going on politically, with sports, whatever. And depending how much interest you got, I think the longest read is gonna be like 6 minutes altogether. But if you're very selective, it's gonna be 1 or 2 minutes. You just want to pay attention to politics, international politics, national politics. That's gonna be even less because it just gives you the bare facts. So hey, look into the source that you're consuming. CNN kind of favors the left. Fox News kind of favors the right. So that's one. That's how you can navigate. And there's media
Yeah.
bias. You just check media bias. You will know how biased the media is.
Yes.
And or if you can't do that, talk to someone that you trust at least because you have to build rapport. And getting back to talking to someone who has a different opinion, build a rapport, build a relationship first. You have to build that foundation. If you just come out of nowhere, just like Donald Trump saying that man speaks good English without forming a relationship, it's, oh wow, he's biased, he's racist, he's white thing. All Africans should speak, sticks and stones and just make those sounds. What is he? So he definitely messed himself there.
Yes.
And that was on the news for a couple of days. And they were saying, oh, that was racist, that was biased. Oh, this man is actually an idiot. This, of course, I said, African nations speak multiple languages. So anything, we're more
Yes.
primitive compared to them. One of them said that. I said, yeah. And so I'm not going to challenge them linguistically. I said they'll beat me linguistically. I said I know what to challenge and know when not to challenge. That is not one of them. Okay, I say I barely speak English and Spanish. Okay, so like that's
Yes.
it. And I'm not sure I got room for a third language, but I personally met one from Nigeria who speaks fluently in 10 languages.
Wow.
Okay, so I said, well, okay, now you just give me a headache with that information. I feel all kinds of dumb. All right. So and yeah, he spoke English, Spanish, French, I think even Russian. Okay, whoa. And even Italian. And guess what? When he spoke it, he sounded better than some native speakers.
Wow.
I
Wow.
said, wow, if you just do a voice, you could act like you're from multiple countries. You could actually scam people. You could act Italian, you would think it's speaking to a fluent Italian. I was like, and sad I forgot this person's name, but to the point, yeah, that was very tasteless. And of course, sadly, he's a US president. He should have he should have had a much better response. And he should not have just
Yes.
said that. You could have kept that in your mind, fine, but don't say it out loud. It's like
Honestly.
a 2 year old. It's like a 2 year old. They don't know how to filter. So, oh my, I think daddy looks like he's about to give birth. He has a big belly. And the 2 years gonna say that out of nowhere. So, whoa, somebody laugh as a cute little 2 year old, but someone and in presidential seat should have been much more
Yeah.
diplomatic and definitely more I don't want to say calculated because that's a bit that implies a person's mean or being fake or yeah, just be more diplomatic with that. Just say, wow, you express yourself eloquently. That's fine. But if you say you spoke
Exactly.
good English, yeah, it's like what you're saying. All Africans are savages and they only speak that. I just they just do those sounds or whatever. No, that's far from the truth. Far from the truth. Far from the truth. And
Yeah.
I've studied global
You know.
history, so that really. Thank goodness I don't have that bias. But and sadly, he's the
Yeah.
president. He hasn't learned that,
Guys.
or he chooses not to. So I'm sorry. I think I went off the tangent
Yeah.
there. But back to
No.
navigating
No.
the
Please. Please.
information.
Not at all.
No. Yeah, because I want to get to how to help people. I'm not coming here to just bash Trump, even though there's a lot to criticize him. Believe me, it really is not hard.
Yeah.
It's not the hardest thing in the world. But people have to check their people should check their sources, what they're listening to, and question things. And
Yes.
if you're ashamed to
Very
do it
important.
publicly, do it privately at least. Do it
Yes.
privately. People don't need to know. Some people knows change. That's fine. Change is good for the most part. Change is good, and for
Yes.
me, I'm not trying to change people's opinion. I'm just trying to tell you how to think things differently and not to get overwhelmed or become a tribal idiot. That's what I'm doing. I don't care if you
Hmm.
say Democrat, Republican. I don't care about that part.
Honestly,
I
at the
don't
end
care.
of the day,
That's not important.
we all want the same thing. Honestly, we just want to live in a world where everyone is accounted for, everyone is taken care of, and we all get to live good lives. It's not more than that. It's one of the reasons why I started getting involved in learning about geopolitics because I figured, the world has become a very small place where imagine something happening in the Middle East affecting every other part of the world. I even heard that in an Asian country. I can't remember the name. I think it's the Philippines or where. That they have just a few days of oil left. And once their supply gets exhausted, there's every chance that the country could run into anarchy. And you can imagine. So aside that, there's already kind of a reputation when it comes to, the African continent. Honestly, I'm not going to say it's most of it is true, let's be honest. And I would understand why anyone in another part of the world, especially a part of the world that is significantly more economically developed, would tend to maybe unintentionally look down on Africans or any African in general. And honestly, to buttress my point, not all Africans are essentially, highly educated or very intelligent or very eloquent. It's just a small percentage of Africans. The main problem is the people at the helm of affairs on the continent. Majority of them are just proxies. You understand? Majority of them are henchmen for these imperialists. Now, I believe this is something you would understand, given you yourself are an experienced man, a well-read man, and you definitely understand how the world works. Now, because of how long this system of neo colonial what is it called, these neo colonies have essentially been around, because I was born into one. Now, even no matter how well learned I am and how educated or how eloquent I can express myself, I can't necessarily, go into the country and start challenging people. I don't have the power nor the resources to actually enforce any kind of feasible change. I can, however, air my opinions, on this my platform, my podcast, for example. So I just want to clarify that. So even if whatever Trump did, no, it's fine, it's okay. I was just unimpressed and kind of like, what is, yeah, you're president for Christ's sake. If it was just an everyday person, a regular folk, I'll be like, oh, I understand. So I get it why this idea, or not even an idea, this thing about how people look at the continent Africa and Africans in general is the way it is, especially people that are from certain countries, probably. I think Nigeria is getting on that list, or may even already be on that list. Nigeria, Somalia, maybe Uganda, Mozambique. I don't even know. I'm just saying, but I totally get it. Anyways, do you have anything to say before I go to the rapid fire questions?
I don't know. I just want to say, no, I agree. And that goes apply to America. You know, a lot of people see America as this wealthy nation. There's plenty of poor people. There's plenty of ignorant people, in America. So I think that applies to, I think, just about all nations. And, some people are just proxies and all that. That applies to, I think, just about all nations. But if you want to get to specifics on how and what, that's going to take on forever. But me, I try to have an open mind when it comes to analyzing culture, just, because American media is very influential and it imports some good beliefs and it imports a lot of garbage beliefs as well about how
Yes.
life works and all that. And and one has to be really critical and conscious when they consume any kind of media, not just American media, but I'm sure globally they got their own global media has its own impacts as well. So
Yes.
I'm just, yeah, it's just, I just say just try to have an open mind. I think that's my main point. Just have an open mind, and it's fine. You can have your preconceived bias. No, we all biased. I'm biased. You're biased. Everybody's biased. But just make sure that's not that's not part of your operating system. Just put it in the back somewhere. And it's good to have your
Yes.
biases challenged. That's all I want to say. Now I'm ready for the rapid fire. Let's see how well I'm gonna do. Ooh.
Okay, okay, awesome. So thank you for that wonderful response, Elias. And now to rapid fire. The first one is, what is a common misconception about politics that most people have?
Oh, that we are free. That's becoming less true.
Yeah, I agree. Now the next one is, what is something people get wrong about disagreement?
Disagreement is not always bad. The two ideas
Yes,
conflicting each other.
it's very important. I mean, it's because people disagree. That's why the human race was able to evolve until this point. So having conflict is very important in any kind of relationship, whether it's a partnership, a friendship, all the ships essentially. Okay, moving on to the next one. And what is the question people should ask before forming an opinion?
Well, me, I'm just gonna use politics because that's what's in my brain. Now. What is so good about that political belief? What's the bad, and what are the blind spots? Doesn't
Exactly.
matter Democrat,
Having
Republican, or
Yes, having
independent.
the ability to self-diagnose, that awareness is very important. Thank you so much for that wonderful response, Elias. Now, Elias, certainty or curiosity, which is more dangerous? I mean, this
Oh,
is obvious. I don't even know
this is
why
yeah,
I
this
asked
is.
this question.
I think. That's a good one. I would probably say curiosity because curiosity leads to risk. Curiosity,
Yes,
especially when you dig deep, you could lose your mind. I think that's more than I would say. Certainty could be. I mean, if you know you're doomed, you're doomed. At least you know. But
yeah.
curiosity, you don't know where it's gonna land. So I'll say curiosity.
Thank you so much, Elias, for that wonderful answer. Now, Elias, the last rapid fire question is, what is one word that you would use to describe a healthy discourse? I think I would use our conversation as an example, but you can give your
Mhm.
answer.
Oh, one word. Conversations. That's it. Just if it's gonna be boiled down one word, it has to be conversations.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank
Open
you so much for that
conversations.
answer, Elias. Now, Elias, this is my final question for today before we wrap up for this interview. If you could leave my listeners with one idea to reflect on, something that could improve how they think or engage with other people, what would it be?
I can answer that in many ways. One will be have an open mind, open ear, make sure you listen. So just getting ready to respond. It's easier said than done, but it's like exercise. The more you use that muscle, the better. And question yourself. It's scary for some, but it's worth it. I promise it's worth it. I was scared of questioning myself. I used to think I was right many times. You probably don't believe that now because I'm more nuanced. But it took time for me to get to this stage. You met me as a teenager, you would have thought I was such a smart aleck. I know it all, smart mouth, all of that. But with evolution and growth, it takes time, and you have a better operating system, if you will, how you navigate through life.
Wow, thank you so much for that wonderful, wonderful response, Elias. And I want you to know that you're not alone when it comes to that. We all started from that point and we got to the point where we realized, there's actually a lot of things we don't know or understand. The more reason why we need to be humble and, open-minded. Elias, this has been an absolutely wonderful, conversation. Understanding doesn't always come from agreement. Sometimes it comes from asking better questions and being willing to sit with a little bit of complexity. Also, Elias, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on my podcast to enlighten I and my listeners. I deeply, deeply appreciate, your presence here. So where can my listeners, learn more about your work and, possibly connect with you and get copies of your book if you have any?
Well, I don't have a book right now. That's not going to be till a couple of years from now because I want to make sure I have a quality book. It's not just, don't get me wrong, money is nice, but I want to make sure it's something that has jam-packed value, so much value into the book. But I don't have that. But where they can find me, I'm on YouTube. I'm also on Rumble. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I am in also in Buzzsprout as well. Then for my social media, so far the only one that's working is my Facebook. I no longer have Twitter or X, whatever the heck you want to call it, but I will be growing an Instagram account. So stay tuned for that.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful answer, Elias. Elias, once again, like I've said, this has been a very thoughtful conversation, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here. I really, really appreciated the time we spent conversing. I've learned a lot from you. It's been such a pleasure to speak with someone so enlightened, someone so open-minded, and somebody who's not afraid to have a discourse with someone. Thank you so, so much, Elias. Do have a wonderful day and do take care of yourself.
Thank you, and you have a wonderful day as well. You made it thoughtful as well. It's not just me; it takes the two of us. So thank you so much.
Yes, like the Europeans say, it takes two to tango. Thank you so much, Elias. Do have a wonderful
Yep,
day.
you too.